Awesome. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. You're in North Carolina right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's it like heat wise down there? I'm in Jersey and it's like so muggy and you can't even breathe. Is it like
Uh,
that in North Carolina too?
well, I mean, I'm on the coast, so yeah. I mean, that's what we're kind of
Ah.
known for is the hot humidity. It's normal for us here. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I've been down to like North Carolina, South Carolina to play golf, but I didn't remember if it was like that humid heat like this, but I guess
Yeah.
it's probably most of the East Coast. So, did you grow up in North Carolina?
For the most part, I'm originally from
Okay.
Columbia, South Carolina. That's where I was born, and but kind of moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, and kind of grew up there, and then moved here because of work, really, back in the
Oh,
day where
nice.
I am now, which is Wilmington, which is where DW rented this studio in the
Ah, okay.
mid early to mid '80s, and so this became home for a long, long time, and moved away to Italy for a while. Now I'm back here, and we're gypsies in this business.
Yeah,
You're
it's
always
good, man.
on the move, always on the go. So it's a gypsy life.
I would love that idea of a gypsy life. I would love to just be able to move so much. We moved to Portland, Oregon for a few years, and it was so good to be somewhere new. So it
Yeah,
wasn't like every night where we were like, what's the new thing we could do? Whether it be like early on with like restaurants or like, hey, let's check out this park for the first time. Like it was good to have those first, but it's
yeah.
good to be like close back to where I know. So growing up, what was that journey? How did you get into makeup?
I guess in a way, my story is like a lot of other guys my age,
Can
but
I
mine
guess? Is it the Monster magazine? The
that was
famous
part of
monsters and okay.
Famous Monsters was a big part of it. I love
Yeah.
Famous Monsters magazine, but I knew what I wanted to do since I was like 6 years old. I really got the bug early on because my parents were very, very young. And so I basically grew up at a drive-in movie theater because they were so
Oh,
young. They
wow.
just put me in the back of the car and we'd go to, the drive-in all the time. And so some of my earliest memories actually are of movies.
That's cool.
And I just fell in love with movies right from the beginning. Uh, and then, of course, love the old monster movies, Shock
Yeah.
Theaters, Saturday nights, and, like I said, Famous Monsters. But for me, the final hook and the final thing was when my father took me to see the original Planet of the Apes when it came out in the
Oh,
theaters,
yeah.
1968, when it originally came out. He took me to the theater and saw that film, and that was it. That was from that point on. It's like that's what I want to do. I want to make movies. I want to make makeup. That's what I want to do. So I knew early on, like I said, what I wanted to do. So I was focused and doing exactly that, and
I
been
love
very,
that you remembered the one. Like, and that's the movie that I would think when you saw that, like even now when you still watch it, it still looks so good. But then it probably must have been like, holy like this
oh yeah,
looks
it was,
like
yeah,
legit apes talking.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of mind blowing, and there had been nothing really like that. That's what I kind of try to explain to people because a lot of people and a lot of my friends that are in this business, their thing was Star Wars, and that's what got them
Oh,
into
okay.
such a huge people. And I kept trying to tell these guys, it's like, guys, what you understand is we experienced the exact same thing with the popularity. The first time that they were actually tie-in toys to something really
Yeah.
was Planet of the Apes, long before Star Wars. So yeah, Star Wars was it for me. It was and still is. It's my favorite. Really, it's still. I think the original film holds up great, and
Oh, yeah.
that's the thing too that a lot of people, especially the younger generation, that is now growing up on the new, apes films. A lot of people don't realize or forget that one of the things that makes the original work so well was the screenplay, which was written, based upon Pierre Boulle's great book. Pierre Boulle also wrote, uh, um, uh, Bridge on the River Kwai, so many great film
Oh, okay.
stuff. But the screenplay was written by Rod Serling.
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah. No, I did know that.
For
Because
the
when I
original,
watched it, it caught my eyes. Yeah.
yeah, for the original
Wow.
Planet of the Apes. And that's why I say, people don't really realize that and what a mark he had and how much he changed it and all. And I just think it's fantastic. I still think it holds up. It's great.
It
Great
does have
fun.
like a Twilight Zone ending.
Yes.
Like that Twilight Zone, usually it's like you're going through and then like there's like so many twists and turns along the way. But at the end, there's one that makes you go, oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
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 I think the one that does that the most for me, there's a lot. Like my wife's an English teacher, so every year during Halloween, she teaches Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Oh, Maple Street.
She has the kids. Yeah. That one's good too. But the very end of the one with the toys, when you're watching the people interact, and it's kind of weird because each person was like a ballerina, an astronaut, I think. And then at the very end, it's like an alien girl playing. I'm like,
yep.
So good.
Yeah, they're great. I love those still. They hold up. They're really good.
Oh yeah. Did you ever work with Rob Berman or cross paths with him? Because his old man worked on Planet of the Apes.
We worked together. Rob and I actually worked together on Super Mario Brothers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And his dad actually rented I was out of town on a show, but his dad actually rented my old shop for a show that he was doing years ago when I was out of town. I think the show that he was doing was called Going to California or something like that.
Okay.
And they did some feature work out of my old shop. But yeah, I mean, you run into a lot of people and know some of the same people, from over the days and stuff. And especially on some of the bigger shows like that, a lot of times there are different companies that come in and will do different aspects of some of the effects work. The business has also changed, greatly.
Oh yeah, definitely now. Yeah. It just seemed like there was like more of like everybody knew each other. Like I would interview someone I mentioned like Tim Lawrence or Steve Neal, and everybody like, oh man, Steve. And I'm like, wow, it's such cool. Like I know actors and everybody sort of commingles, but everybody's still in the sense like going out for similar jobs unless you're working, for that studio at that time. But no, that's I love practical's the best, man.
No, I agree. And I mean, I've been lucky with that. And the last, couple of films I did, the directors kind of insisted on practical, which I'm all for, and I pushed that as well. But I mean, I fear that things are changing, unfortunately, now, and I fear not for the better with the whole, AI and stuff like that.
Yeah,
creeping into stuff. It's I don't know. I'm not a digital fan. I'm not a CG fan at all. And now they're just, it's anyway. I'm happy with the career I had. I'm very fortunate that I've been able to really travel the world, work with fantastic people all over the world. I feel fortunate that I've done some films that still people know and love and respect, and hopefully a few that'll stand the test of time. But I think it's time to move on for myself.
Yeah, no, my only hope is, and I know all people won't feel like the way you or I are like true movie lovers that like to watch the old monster movies or just to watch a movie from the beginning to end. I think about, and not since I've done this, I think I appreciate it a lot more since I've been interviewing people for like 5 years. Everything that goes into like one shot, not even just one movie. I just hope people reject the AI films if that does come to a place, just because it's just not, there's nobody there. There's nobody doing anything with it,
I totally agree, but I mean, unfortunately, it is coming. They're already,
I know.
They're already out there. They're already out there. So it's coming. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it's a different world, and you hit on something though just now, which is also part of the trend that's changed. Something that bugs me. You said you like to see a whole movie.
I know.
I totally agree with you there, but I feel like, in all honesty, and this is probably going to make some people angry, but I mean, I think Marvel is partly to blame here with some of this, because nowadays you don't get a whole movie anymore. You go to especially these, Marvel films, and it's action sequence, action sequence, action sequence, action sequence, and then that's it. There's no
Yeah.
beginning, middle, or end. You don't get an end. You don't get a complete movie anymore because they're just, oh, we're making more, so it's just going to be continuation. But that, to me, that is boring. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that didn't hold my attention, and I don't think really in the long run it's good for even the people that say they like it, because
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's not memorable. It doesn't stick with you like the old films did, where they had structure, a beginning, middle, and an end. You had a
Yeah.
complete film you could enjoy. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah, I think too many choices. Like the access is cool to be able to have like, oh man, movie here, movie. But I would have never watched like the movies I watched growing up if it wasn't for what my dad would let me pick out two movies. It was like that's what we were watching because that's what we had. It wasn't like, hey, let's go to the wall of VHS tapes that we have. And then even like watching on HBO and Showtime and Cinemax and all that, you couldn't pick when it started. It was like, hey, everybody, 2:15, we got to be at the TV to watch this movie. It was like more of like an event. Even that felt more
Yeah,
of an event. Now it's just like, what should we watch? And it's like, it sucks. All right, let's go to the next one. Like you give films like 5-10 minutes, you know?
yeah, it's over. It's the market is oversaturated. You're absolutely right,
Yeah.
and that's part of the problem. And it's becoming, like I said, it's becoming unmemorable. It used to be a movie, like you said, was an event. It was, some things you really look forward to. It's like, oh, that's, and then you saw it, and then you talked about it, and you had to go around your mind, and you had time to think about it and process it
Yeah.
and retain it. Now there's just so much, and it's just, especially binge watching, you don't retain any of that. It's like,
I know.
it's just, I don't know, it's a sad, weird thing to me with what's happening to our industry, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, it's like you used to have like the one or two new movies on a Friday,
Yeah,
and maybe the competition of a movie of the week on like a Saturday night. But for
yeah,
the most part, that was it. But now it's like, oh, do I go to the movie and spend $25, including my popcorn, and then, or man, Netflix, Hulu, all these have these new. It's just, yeah, it's too much. And it's not a good thing, you
no,
know?
it's really
Yeah.
not. No.
So back to happier times. So when when you're growing up and this is something you want to do, what was like your first steps? Was it like asking your parents to get you like makeup to mess around with stuff, or
Well, my parents had no clue what, I mean, they just didn't understand what I was.
how young were they? Like in their early 20s when they
When
had you?
when I was born, my dad was still at 19 and my mom was 20.
Oh
So
wow.
they were kids having a kid,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But they just didn't understand my total passion and love for what it was, and just didn't understand it. They were supportive once I made it, but
Wow.
they didn't
Yeah.
understand at the beginning. They thought I was crazy, which I am. But I don't know. Especially growing up where I did, in the South,
Yeah.
furthest away from Hollywood as you can get, I didn't know really what my chances would be. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I really started delving into trying to figure out how, and recreate stuff I was seeing on screen when I was a kid. Um, but what I did was, and of course, this is before internet or anything like that. So I sought out, any kind of books I could get on it, which were very limited back then. But what
Yeah.
I did, which I think, and I still recommend to people that are interested in this, what I did at an early age was I got involved in local theater. And that is a great training ground for all things in this world, because that also teaches you how one to work with people and
Yeah.
everything. And so I think that's a great training ground for everybody, and especially if you want to get into this kind of stuff too. I mean, theater is a great training ground for it, and just a lot of fun. And so that's what I did, and that's actually how I got my first film offer, was because
Really?
because I would, I still do this. This has all been part of me forever. I like to push the envelope. I don't
Mhm.
want somebody in an interview recently. Somebody asked me, and at first I thought this was a silly question, but then I started thinking about it. Somebody recently asked me, they said, well, you've done so many iconic films. What does it take to do an iconic film? And I'm like, well, you don't know when you're making the film. It's going to be, a good or iconic film. But I think the real answer to your question is everybody has to bring something to the table. You have to push it. You have to bring something to it. You don't, and that's something I've always done. And so going back to the start with the theater stuff, I would, being interested in making effects and stuff, I would try to do crazy stuff on stage that you weren't used to seeing done on stage.
Wow.
And so there's an old play, which they did do a movie of it in the, I think, late 70s, early 80s. I can't remember now. They did do a movie version of it, but there was a stage play by Ira Levine called Death Trap, which is about two playwrights who are writing a play, and as they're writing the play, they're actually knocking off people for real. It's a really fun play. But in this play, there's several murders that take place, and every time I'd ever seen this play done stage-wise, the murders usually happen off stage. The person would walk off stage.
Oh yeah.
The guy would fire a crossbow and walk back on stage. And so I talked to the director into this production that I did of this in the late 70s. I said, let's do this where the actors never leave the stage ever. And we see everything happen on stage. And if they well, you can't do that, I can do this. I pulled it off, and it was crazy. You see a guy get shot with a crossbow on stage. You see a guy get choked, and actually to the point where it cuts into his neck, and his neck is bleeding with a garrote on stage. All this stuff that just freaking people out, and it was fun and doing our thing. And I'm a kid. I was 19 years old at this time.
Wow.
And at the end of one of the performances one night, I'm literally in the back of the stage packing up my little makeup kit to go home that evening. And this guy comes backstage and said, "Who did the effects?" And everybody points to me. Like I said, we're in the back of the stage packing up my kit. And he comes over and says, "Have you ever done a movie?" And I said, "No." He goes, "You want to?" I said, "Yes." And he hired me on the spot to do the makeup and make effects for a really bad, low-budget horror film in 1980, which is the very first one I ever did, called The Membrane, where I created the membrane.
The membrane.
Yeah, can't find it anywhere nowadays. And I made the membrane creature and did all the effects for it and had a blast. Didn't know what the heck I was doing, but had a blast. And then, funny enough, the membrane creature, which is really the first thing I ever made for the film, is now in a museum here in Wilmington because the membrane creature got a renewed second life because when they were doing the television series Dawson's Creek.
Yeah.
All right. In the pilot episode of Dawson's Creek, and actually the first shot of Dawson's Creek starts with a TV screen of Dawson and Joey in his bedroom watching, I think, E.T. on the TV. So the opening shot is of his TV in the bedroom of his room, and the membrane creature sitting right on top of the TV because all his room was decorated. Because if you recall or remember Dawson's Creek at all in the first couple seasons, Dawson wanted to be a filmmaker. And so that's where, okay. So all the stuff in his bedroom was all stuff I made as a kid that they used to decorate the room and stuff. It's a membrane.
Really?
In the first shot of Dawson's Creek. So now it's got a second life. So it's in the museum now because of Dawson's Creek.
Oh my God. Wait, so they hired you for the job?
Well,
and then you did it, or how did it work out?
A little of both. My wife was the first AD on the series for 3 years. And they hired us on that one to do, there were several things. I don't know how familiar you are, if you remember that much about those three.
I remember that show, yeah.
Well, he wanted to be a filmmaker. So he was actually making his own horror film. So they hired us to do like all the effects for like his horror film and stuff that he was making and stuff. And we had to make a decapitated head because they knocked
Pacey?
Katie
right?
Holmes' head off. Yeah,
Oh, Katie Holmes, Joey. Yeah,
Katie Holmes, yeah, played Joey. And oddly enough, if you remember the show, uh, Dawson learns how to kiss a girl. His dad's teaching him how to kiss a girl because he's working on making this decapitated head of Joey for the film, and he's using that decapitated head to learn how to kiss. And I thought that is so bizarre and weird that we got
that
to,
is, yeah.
yeah. So we made all that kind of stuff, for the show and stuff like that. Like I said, they used all my
And you
stuff.
chose the membrane as like a symbolic thing. You put that there.
No, I gave the set dresser and prop guy knew all my stuff, so they wanted to use all the stuff and bar stuff. And then
That's
they're
cool.
I had no idea because I wasn't on the set when they shot, that kind of stuff on that show.
Oh, that's even cooler. So it was like kind of a surprise. You're like, hey, all my stuff's
when I
there.
see the show, and first thing is, oh, there's the membrane, boom, right off the bat.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, back to the guy that was a local shoot, that horror movie, The Membrane. So it was a local one, and the guy was just scouting. Hey, I'll take anybody to do the special effects, and he just so happened to go into that show. That's wild.
Yeah, he was an interesting cat. Like I said, you can't find the movie nowadays, which is a shame. And what he was trying to do, that was 1980. And what he was trying to do, he was way ahead of the curve. Not a good film, by the way, but I had fun doing it. But what he was trying to do, like I said, 1980, he was trying to make this film directly for the home video market in 1980.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like unheard of then, So that was his idea. He made the film. Like I said, it's not great, but that was the start of it. And that's what got me going. And then I did, a couple other low budget horror films and some stuff. And then finally got hooked up with good filmmakers and started making better, good movies.
How'd you make that connection? Still, was it somebody that you worked with, or did you go out to Hollywood, or?
Well, I got really lucky. I did a couple movies that, and one of the early films I did was actually a 3D film called Rottweiler, or
Whoa.
goes by several titles. It's Rottweiler.
Oh, yeah, I see that here. Dogs of Hell.
Hell, yeah.
So 83, they did a 3. Oh, I guess that's right around the 3D boom, right?
Yeah,
Friday the 13th, Jaws, all that time.
I was working for a guy named Earl Owensby, who used to make really low budget, back then, kind of like drive-in movies.
Yeah.
And he started making some 3D films, and Rottweiler being the first of those films. And so anyway, I got hooked up with some people because of that. And I was made an offer on a film, another 3D film after that, which was for a producer named Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah.
And when I got the script for it, I was kind of horrified, not because it was a scary script, but because what was required was beyond my skill set at the time.
Oh,
and so
okay.
instead of me taking the job and failing miserably at it, I did what I've stuck to my entire life and career, which was be honest.
Yeah.
So I told Dino, look, I'm not ready for this one. And instead of that turning him off, he actually liked me better because I was honest. So what he did was, so he kept me in mind. And so then, like the next year, another film came up, and he offered me that film. He sent me the script, and I was like, oh yeah, let's do this. And so that was my first one for Dino, which then I ended up working for Dino for 4 years straight after that. And Dino De Laurentiis, unfortunately he's passed away now. He made so many great films over his huge career that he did. But he groomed me. He gave me a career, and he groomed me. And I was kind of too young and stupid to see what he was doing for me at the time. But I did understand later and was able to thank him before he did pass away and let him know how much I appreciated him and what he did for me.
Yeah.
Because he really did. He groomed me to do what I went on to do. And
what was that first film? What was that first script?
The first one I did with Dino was Stephen King's Cat's Eye.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. And that was a fun movie to make, too, because that's in 1984, okay, when we shot the film. It came out in 1985. But when we shot that film in 1984, you got to remember that's before CG, that's before any of this kind of stuff. And those three little short stories that are in that, to accomplish what you're seeing on the screen there, we literally had to use every known special effect known to man to make and pull off those things. And to see that process and be a part of a lot of that process was so much fun and fascinating. And I still think that stuff holds up much better than CG stuff today. Like, for example, in Cat's Eye, one of the Emilio Ruiz, who is a wonderful miniature effects artist, and he did all the miniature stuff for the ledge sequence, where he's Robert Hayes is walking around the ledge of the high-rise building. Okay, we shot on stage. We shot all that on stage with forced perspective miniature work and all this stuff, and it looks absolutely wonderful. And that's the magic of Emilio Ruiz and miniature work, which I think is so much better than the CG crap that you get today. Anytime you have something real in camera, not only to me does it look better, but it also, and this is something that a lot of people don't understand, it actually helps the actors' performances be more real and better when it's something they're reacting to that's real at the time. So much better and so important that a lot of people just don't get and understand. There's no comparison.
So you're pretend there's a sunset behind you and you're looking at this green screen. You can't feel everything, No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Wow, Cat's Eye, that's a good So did Dino do a lot of the Stephen King movies? He did Silver Bullet?
Yeah. So he did Firestarter. Wow. Oh, he did tons of them. He did Dead Zone, Firestarter. He did tons of them. Yeah. Dino loves Stephen King. Yeah. Yeah. Well, in fact,
and then a few years ago, you worked with him again. You worked with Stephen King.
I've worked with
for Mr. King. Mercedes, right?
I've worked with Stephen King maybe 6 or 7 times now over the years.
Oh, no, I know that, but I'm saying more recently, and that's cool.
Yeah, I did 2 with him recently, Under the Dome and then Mr. Mercedes.
I love that, yeah.
But Dino also let Stephen direct his one and only film too, which was Maximum Overdrive.
I love that movie.
That was a Dino film. See, that was. In fact, I was offered Maximum Overdrive, and I actually turned it down to do a film that I think is a little bit better, which is the one behind me, Blue Velvet, for David Lynch.
Oh yeah, that is.
I think I made the right decision there.
I think you did too.
Yeah,
that's like a movie. Obviously, the other movies you appreciate, but that's one that. Not saying the other ones don't hold up, but that was like a monster. Still is to the day. The people in it. It was like touchstone movies in their career, like Kyle MacLachlan. Wow. How did that come about?
Well, you got to understand there too. Like I said, that I read the script for Blue Velvet in 1984.
Whoa.
I met David Lynch in '84 while I was actually doing Cat's Eye. And that's also an important lesson to all the younger people out there today. And a very important lesson that they need to learn that I think the younger generation is getting bad about. This is so important, especially in any business, but especially the film business. Know who you're in a room with. Okay? My point being, we're shooting Cat's Eye. We're on the stage, and we're actually in the upscale set at that point in Drew Barrymore's bedroom. That all the sets and everything was built huge to make the troll look tiny. And the door opens, and this man walks in, and I about faint. And the person beside me says, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "That's David Lynch." And that person said, "Who?" Yeah. So I met David Lynch that day, and that kind of set the things in motion. And I was able to get the script for Blue Velvet in 1984. And reading that script for the very first time in 1984, we shot the film in 1985. It came out in the theaters in '86. And reading that script for the first time, you got to remember when that was. There had been nothing like that ever before.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I read that script the first time, it's like, I have to do this film because there's just been nothing like this. And it still holds up to me as far as that goes.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. It's, yeah.
That's what he does. He makes these very unique things that if people do try to copy it, which people do with all filmmakers and styles, It's
Yeah.
just, it's not like, you've seen people try to do like a Twin Peaks-ish like kind of vibe, and you're like, nah, you
Well,
can't.
David is a true artist. He's my
Yeah.
favorite. He's my favorite director I ever worked with, bar none. And I've worked with some great ones. There's a lot of them I really respect and love and like. But David was my favorite because he's a true artist. But he also did something on that which is so rare, and a lot of people don't understand this when I say it. And then people in the industry, when they hear it, they go, "Oh wow, yeah." He let me do my job. He gave me total freedom and let me do my job. That is almost unheard of in this business. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was so much fun. And we created something together, all of us on that film, that is still memorable today because of that, because he welcomed input, because he's a true artist. And a true artist does that, And he did so many things that I wish other directors would do. One that he did that I don't see, well, I've never worked with a director since that did it. And this is something that really helped, especially the actors, but even the crew that he did. He would play music before doing a scene to help set the mood, It worked beautifully. It really did. And I wish more people would do that kind of stuff, because it's just the thing too that I used to teach a lot. And one of the things I would try to express to the students, and that's one of the things I loved about filmmaking back in the day when it truly was filmmaking, was that filmmaking was the only art form that takes all art forms and puts them together and uses them to make this art form. It's the only that does that. And that's fascinating and fun. And that's also, it's not a one person process. It takes the village, a crew to make a film. That the whole thing of auteur directors, I hate that term because there's no such thing, really. It takes a crew of people to make a film, So that's the thing that I used to really, really enjoy and love. And that's the thing I miss nowadays, because you don't have that as much.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And so at this point, that's a pretty big. So after you do that movie, was there like in your career, there must have been a point that, because you got offered that movie by David after meeting him, I'm guessing.
Well, Dino was the one that really all set it up too. And see, like I said, I didn't understand at the beginning of what Dino was doing for me, because like I said, my first one was Cat's Eye with Dino, and then he put me on Silver Bullet, and then he takes me off of Silver Bullet and gives me a film called Marie, which was not an effects film at all. It was a good film with amazing people, screenplays. That's the thing too. And I look for really great screenplays and stories, because that's the key. That's what you start with, and then a great director. So Marie was based upon Peter Moss's book. Peter Moss was known for writing like Valachi Papers and true crime.
Oh yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that was based upon his book. And then the screenplay for Marie was written by John Briley, who wrote, in fact, he won the Oscar for Gandhi screenplay, and so many great screenplays. So the script was great. And then we had a really good director, which was Roger Donaldson, who had done The Bounty with Dino De Laurentiis before. And we had a great cast. Sissy Spacek, another Oscar winner, Sissy Spacek, Jeff Daniels, Morgan Freeman. I mean, the cast was kept going on and on and on. But like I said, it was a straight makeup, actually a period piece, because it's following a true story. So it was really 70s. We made it in the 80s, so it's hardly it. But, you do have to make the people look for the time period proper. But I was really confused at that point. I was like, why did Dino take me off of effects film and do a film that has no effects? In my little stupid brain at that time just couldn't fathom that, until I realized years later, oh, of course, he was totally grooming me, because my next film that he gave me after Marie was Blue Velvet.
And he gave you extra tools in your toolbox. You have a movie that wasn't special effects, and then you use that a lot later in your career.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Let's see,
cool. Yeah.
Blue Velvet had it all. You know,
Yeah,
it had
yeah, yeah.
makeup, it had, you know, character makeup, it had prosthetics, it had it all. But that's the thing. I didn't realize at the time, like I said, what a huge favor Dino did for me as far as how he groomed me and what he did for me. I learned that later, and I realized that, like I said, I was able to thank him for what he
Yeah, you were
did.
like a young kid thinking like, "Oh man, what is he taking me off this
What
for?
are you taking me
He
off
doesn't
a
like
werewolf?
me."
Yeah,
Yeah.
why is he taking me off a werewolf movie? You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man, you have so many cool. Like, I think it is cool. Like you mentioned, like you pick the scripts that you want to do. There's like some really funky movies. One is really cool now that we're talking, like the monster movies. So it must have been pretty cool to do a King Kong movie. King Kong Lives. You worked on?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's like you said, the scripts. Somebody asked me recently, he's like, "Oh, you must love horror films." Yeah, I do love horror films, but I'm not. I'm not drawn to a particular genre. What I'm drawn
Yeah.
to is the script. Like I said, that's what draws me into it originally is because that's where it all starts for all of us is the pages on the words on a page. And so scripts are what draws me to it, and then hopefully you got a good director attached to that. But then you work with to what I enjoyed back in the day. Really was getting, like I said, a good script, a good uh, director, and then working with that director to help develop the characters and create memorable characters that are going to inhabit this world that you're now creating and make something hopefully will be memorable for the movie going people and something that people will enjoy and remember. That was what was fun for me.
Yeah.
King Kong Lives, not so much fun.
Oh.
King Kong Lives. In fact, I took my name off of that film. My name is not on the
Oh yeah,
film.
it's uncredited. It says uncredited. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually took my name. I've done that on several films where I've asked them, said, nope, nope, don't. Yeah. And King Kong was one of those. It was kind of a mess. It really it had a lot of issues and problems, and I don't think it's a very good film, unfortunately. I
Yeah.
try to be a little kinder nowadays to some of the films that I had done that I am not a fan of. I try to be a little kinder to some of them nowadays because a few of them have now a lot of following, and
Yeah.
even one or two of them that are not my favorites have even got cult film status now. That I don't understand some of it, but so I've tried to be a little nicer because even though it wasn't my cup of tea, I try to be nice because they enjoy it and appreciate it. So
Yeah.
I thank them for appreciating our work that went into it. But I got to admit, I still don't think a lot of them were good films.
I was trying to get the guy's name. He's a director now. I should know his name. Patrick something. He actually did it was like an odd credit when I was reaching out to him. He directed the movie Baby's Day Out. But he had like a weird it was the only special effects credit. I'm gonna get his name because it's like because I remember seeing that on his IMDb and I'm like, what? Oh, Patrick Reed Johnson. He had like a random job on the movie.
Oh,
I don't
Sean,
even know. On King Kong Lives.
what did he do? I don't remember this
Let
person.
me pull it up.
Okay.
I don't know what. Let's see. Is ever I was like emailing him back and forth, and I'm like, oh, let's look on his credits, and I was like, King. He has a visual effects credit. Wait, was it for King Kong Lives? It's got it.
That name does not ring a bell at all. But I mean, that was a huge.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. No, he could have done like a half a day on there or something.
That was a pretty big movie at the time. In fact, it cost a lot of money for that time too. I think that was like a $40 million production.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so it was not a little film whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know where it went. Yeah, what? I don't know.
And John Gillerman directed King Kong Lives. John Gillerman directed the Dino '76 King Kong remake, which is a much better
Oh,
film,
really?
in my opinion, than King Kong Lives. Yeah, Gillerman was also the director of that. But Gillerman directed, um, Towering Inferno, and
Oh, okay.
films like that. Yeah, he was Yeah.
Yeah, so I got the guy. He was a crew leader for the special effects miniatures as Patrick Johnson. I don't know. Maybe he slipped his name in there. But no, now here's a question I wanted to mention to you before. And it's now when you were making these movies, did you think, because growing up it wasn't, because there was no home box office, there was maybe the movie of the week, but when you saw a movie in 1976 in the movie theater, you're like, oh, that's a great movie, I'm happy I saw this movie, I'm most likely not going to see it again, whether it be at a theater that runs this movie one day down the road. Did you think, like, when you're working on these movies, that they would be thought of nowadays? The reason I ask is, like, the 70s films, when you think of the 70s, it's just not the same. 80s is the boom, because I feel like that's when the boom of the VHS came out.
Well, I mean, I started my career in 1980 as far as making films,
Yeah.
but as far as my favorite time period of filmmaking, in my opinion, really is the mid 60s up to really the end of the 70s. I
Oh,
think
okay.
that time period, to me, some of the best, most memorable, and better films were still, in my opinion, were made,
Yeah.
that actually say something as well. Um, I think that was a great time period. Uh, but I would actually, I love movies so much that what I did, and you might remember, I know you're a lot younger, but you seem like you're a movie fan. So
Yeah.
I would actually, in the 70s, buy copies of the films on Super 8.
Really? Was that like
There,
illegal, or was that like
yeah,
bootlegs?
yeah, there were companies that sold, and you could buy different versions. In other words, you could buy a complete film. It was expensive. You could buy a complete film, but there were several companies, Ken Films, Castle Films, there were all these different
Oh my
film
God.
out there that would sell condensed, shorter, compilation, anywhere from 8 minutes to 20 minutes of the film cut down on Super 8. You could get them in sound, they were, you could get them silent, or you could get sound. It depends. I mean, which one to do. But
Yeah.
I used to buy a lot of films that I loved like that, and just watch them over and over and over and studied them, and
That is cool.
that's how I really started kind of learning the process of filmmaking. Really was by basically buying these films and just watching them in my room all the time, anytime I
Yeah,
wanted.
I never thought of that. The only time I ever thought about it, when you started telling, you were mentioning like the short films, I helped this actor Larry Hankin write a book, and he said when he was writing a screenplay for the band, because
Yeah,
Bob Dylan thought he was funny, so he was up in like Pink House in New York. He was
yeah,
staying down the road, and he had no cable, no nothing, so he was bored. And he goes, "I bought like a Charlie Chaplin short movie, and that's what
yeah.
I'd watch every night until I fell
Yeah.
asleep." And I never thought movies were so. Wow, how much would that cost? Do you remember, if you wanted to buy like a?
It really depended. You could buy at that time. You could buy okay. The lowest end was if you got a black and white silent version or clips, okay, condensed clips. The shortest ones, maybe like 8 minutes long, black and white silent. You could go to Kmart back in the day and buy them at Kmart for like
Wow.
$5. Okay, but if you wanted a sound color version, then for that 8 minute sound color version, then you're talking maybe $40. If you wanted a complete film, you're talking $250,
That's
$300
crazy.
for the entire film, which I did several times. I bought the entire movie.
Yeah.
I had a lot of the condensed, cuts as far as in sound too, because and that's something too that people didn't realize, because I used to make my own movies in Super 8 when I was a kid. And that's kind of my thing too, as far as I think times have changed. And my whole career, I went into it knowing I wanted to do makeup, but I went into it as a filmmaker first.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. And I think that's something that our younger generation is kind of losing. because a lot of people get into this business, I think, nowadays for the wrong reasons, to be honest with you. They think, oh,
Mhm.
slam.
No, yeah.
And it's not anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
and also going into makeup, most people are, intrigued and kind of the special effects is the eye candy. So that's what gets your attention. But the truth of the matter is the regular makeup is the thing that's really the most important because that is what is needed and called for in every film, every TV show, every commercial, everything needs regular makeup. Not everything needs the special effects makeup. So you have to look at the regular makeup as your work and your bread and butter, and the effects stuff is your dessert. You don't always get it, but enjoy it when you get it.
Yeah.
When I started my career, I did both. And when that was almost unheard of and kind of almost still is really. But back then when I first started, it was really, it was only like maybe a handful, maybe 5 or 6 of us back in the day. And when I first started, did both like I did. We worked all the time because of that.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And I think we got more interesting projects because of that, to be honest with you, too. Uh, so my point now is a lot of the newer generation goes into it thinking makeup, oh, well, my job is just to make the actors look pretty. No, your job as a makeup artist is to, like I said, help create and make characters.
Yeah.
These characters have to look like they're supposed to as far as the conditions and the problems they're facing in the script and, their environment, everything affects the way they look and what they should. So, no, your job is not to make people look pretty. Your job is to make characters and make them look like they should for the story. And
Yeah.
I think that's where we're kind of losing it with some of the stuff today is a lot of people don't seem to quite get that.
Yeah, no, people want to be the manager of the restaurant and they don't want to bust tables or host or be a waiter or waitress, and then they don't know everything that goes into it. I think it's so cool. Whenever I talk to directors that did have a background in acting, I feel like they understand more, and you could tell the way they talk about like their own acting career, the transition to directing. But
Yes.
no, I totally agree.
Well,
No.
I've worked with several directors who are actors. In fact, you said you just watched one just recently, which was actually a fun movie.
Betsy's Wedding.
Betsy's Wedding.
Oh my God.
Alan Alda. I loved Alan. Loved working with Alan. He wrote and directed and starred in the film with amazing casts. He puts together amazing ensemble. Too good. In all his films. It was an amazing experience all the way around, and just I loved him. And yeah, it's a different world. You're doing that, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, it's got to be such a good experience when you're working with. Yeah, that cast. I think there's so many movies that are like that when I go through people's IMDb's, and it's mind blowing that I've never seen that movie. Even another one I know you took your name off the credits, but just for the poster alone, the Michael Keaton, the Squeeze. I can't believe I've never seen, just like as a kid going in and looking at the VHS, because I'm 37, but when my dad always take me to the store, like when I was young. So, he'd be in the back of the VHS store behind the double doors. I'd be like, just looking at all the box there. Cause I think it's still so cool. Like just looking at it, it's like looking at that baseball card. And I just never have seen that one before. Yeah. And I watched that like a year ago because the poster alone, like just seeing the Twin Towers on a poster.
Yeah. But, no, I didn't do that whole film. Most of the films I worked on, I truly did the entire film. But there's a few that I just would come in and do, there's some that I just did effects work on. So you're not there the whole time when you're just doing effects work.
Yeah.
But the Squeeze was one of those I just came in and helped them with some key scenes and different things and like that. So, yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's a fun little movie. Great cast. I mean, I got to work with Meatloaf, Ray Dong Chong.
Yes.
Great people in it. And Meatloaf and
Joey Pants.
Yeah, and Meatloaf and I actually did, after meeting on that, we did a music video together. I was
going to ask you about that. So that came out after? That's cool.
Yeah, we did a music video, Getting Away with Murder, which was the song, which was a lot of fun. And he was a great guy. I loved him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's that's the thing. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I've been able to work with some great people, and for the most part, they are great people. You know, you really, there's a few that you never want to see again. You know,
I'm
but
sure, yeah.
most of them are just absolutely wonderful to work with. And when you're, working together like that, you're all trying to, create something good. And that's the thing too. That, like I said, I used to teach a lot, and that's something I try to express to young people today and students too. To me, like I said, genre never mattered to me. I'm looking for something good with good people. But also, in my personal experience, the bigger the budget of a movie, the bigger the mess.
Oh, of course.
Okay. The lower budget films are more pleasant to do simply because everybody's there because they want to be there. That makes such a big difference. You don't have anybody that's just there collecting a paycheck and just like watching that clock, and they don't really care about, low budget films. Everybody's there because they want to be there, and they're bringing their A game, and it's just better. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff, is there any part of your job? I was just thinking about this. So when you're responsible for putting the makeup on, are you watching the scenes while they're shot and being like, oh man, I think we should reapply it? Like, or is that another facet? Like, or is there other things that you do that people might not know?
Well, no, you have to. That's the thing that a lot of people that aren't in the industry don't really follow and understand how each department works and how it all works. So hair and makeup and wardrobe really are always, and then poor first, the AD who's running first team, we get the earliest calls in transpo, who has to bring the actors. We always get the earliest calls of anybody on a film set. We're there hours and hours before the rest of the crew is getting people ready. So it all starts with us, really, and that's something that a lot of people don't really realize. We actually get to know the actors better than anybody on a set.
Oh, sure.
So we're doing with them is actually very personal, and we get to know them as they're in our chair for hours sometimes. So you're talking, you really get to know these people, and you get a relationship and a rapport with them, and that's a fun part of it. And then you have to be with them and follow them throughout the day to maintain the way they're supposed to look, or do changes in the way they're supposed to look from scene to scene, or effects, or whatever the case may be, to create this story. And then at the end of the day, take the makeup off of them so their skin is good, and go home and enjoy the rest of the night. So we're with them constantly. That's the thing. I mean, and my eye is always on my actor. And I try to, like I said, teach a lot, and this is something I try to pass on to the younger generation too, is always pay attention, always watch, and anticipate. Time is money on a set.
Yes.
Okay. Always.
Yeah.
So if you pay attention and they're getting ready to do a take, go up, check your actors out, do the touch-ups. Don't wait for them to say last looks. You do that, and then when the AD calls last looks, a good makeup artist reply should be ready, because you just did it. You're anticipating, you're ahead of the game, ready, so that they can go straight into filming. Save them time. It's beautiful. Most people don't do that, but that's what you really need to do.
Where are you teaching at? Where were you teaching at? Lynch local colleges by you?
I have taught all over the world at this point. I did my own school here. I have taught in a few. I did teach for a little bit in a college here and there. I taught in Rome, Italy for a while. Right now, I'm not teaching anywhere because it's all kind of changing now. So
yeah. Italy, was that when you were living there? I assume, like at that same time, you're like,
yeah. I lived over in Rome, Italy for a while.
It's pretty cool. So I've talked to people that do special effects, and I don't know, it's just the way this conversation's going, Jeff. Not saying the other people aren't knowledgeable, but you're very in depth, and I love that, like, with your responses. So, like, when you go out for, like, what would you say? You have to give me the hardest one, but what was the most, like, involved makeup job that you did that took like X amount of time? Like, hey, the actors had to be in the chair for 3, 4, 5 hours.
Well, actually, that really never happens.
Oh, really? Okay.
Those times, a lot of times, are greatly inflated. I don't know why they do
Really?
that. If you had an actor in the chair for that long time, productions would kill you
That's good
because
to know.
it's cutting down on the time that they can be on set shooting. So
Yeah.
if you go over 3 hours on something, you're in big trouble
You're gonna
usually.
get fired.
I mean, it's crazy sometimes you hear somebody's like that doesn't happen. Um, you have to plan these things out, testing, get the timing down quicker. But I'd say one of the craziest things and most time consuming thing I ever, and actually the biggest thing, and this is another one I took my name off of. But the biggest thing I ever really made and did was sculpted and made the crocodile for 2 Italian films in the 80s called Killer Crocodile 1 and 2. Terrible movies. But I did it because I was partners for a long time with a really great makeup artist who now has passed away. Most of my old friends now are no longer with us, unfortunately. I used to work with. And he was a great makeup artist, and especially in horror films, people know his work. His name was Gennaro De Rossi. And this, we did many films together, and he called me up and wanted me to do Killer Crocodile because it was his first film that he was getting to direct.
Oh, okay.
I was honored that he asked me to do the films that he was going to direct. So I actually Italian films. This was like in the 87, 88 time period, and Italian films that we were shooting in Dominican Republic. So they flew me. I was down in Dominican Republic for like a month prior to the crew actually even arriving to sculpt and make this giant 39-foot long, fully operable crocodile. That was quite the undertaking. And I have to say the movies are terrible, but if you go back and look at the crocodile for its time,
Yeah.
crocodile looks pretty damn good for its time and actually functions. No CG, 4 CG, and some of the shots you see in that, you're like, how the heck did he do that?
Oh, I had to look that up. That's pretty awesome.
And it's a huge, giant crocodile. So that was
I'm sure that gets some play, right? I'm sure. Is that one of the pop? I mean, I could see that being a popular film. Like after the fact, like nowadays, like a second. No,
I don't know. I mean, it's. I know some people know the film, but I don't know if too many people know about those films. They like I said, they were really bad. It was basically, well, I mean, I'm sorry to say, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but the Italian cinema was really bad about basically making rip-offs or knockoffs of films.
Oh, what do you mean that Jaws, whatever that Jaws movie was, that has the same font and everything?
Well, see, that's funny that you're saying that because that film was directed by my father-in-law and starred my ex-wife. Yes.
That is amazing.
Yeah, Great White is what you're talking about. Yes, and they were sued.
Oh my god,
like blatant Jaws ripoff. Well, Crocodile's the same way. Crocodile is a blatant.
Oh, it's like
Jaws.
alligator.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay.
And instead of shark, they just okay, crocodile. I mean, it's a
grizzly. That's what Grizzly did too.
Yeah. Grizzly was fun. But yeah.
You ever see the second one?
I didn't, but I've heard that it's now available, and I'd kind of like to see it.
I interviewed the lady. It's free on like Tubi or something. So I heard. You really got to check it out because another movie. The cast is unbelievable. Like everyone in it.
George Clooney.
It's George Clooney, Laura Dern, and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, I forgot that.
They're like campers in it. What's his name from Raiders of the Lost Ark? What the heck's his name? British actor. He was in Lord of the Rings. He plays Gimli, the dwarf. God, he's like a huge actor. I should know his name off the top of my head. But anyway, I've heard about it for so long, and I found like these things like
Did,
the piece. Huh?
Did it about Denham Elliott?
No, I'll pull up his name right now.
All right.
John Rhys Davies.
Oh Lord, okay, yeah.
Deborah Foreman, Louise Fletcher's in this, Oscar winner.
Oh my God.
Deborah Raffin. And I think that's pretty much it. But it's a lot of people. So I've heard about this movie for so long, just reading about it as a kid. I don't know why it came into my eyes. I think maybe because of Clooney. And I used to always joke, I'm like, Clooney's going to buy this friggin' movie and bury it. Or one of them will bury it. And then I read, it's going to be coming out. So I've just out of the hell of it, I interviewed like the executive producer. So she was only like a translator because they were filming somewhere in Eastern Europe. And then she worked her way up to working with the budget and helping out, speaking to, because she spoke English. So she would like translate. And the long story short, they were like, the guy was like stealing money. The producer was stealing money. So they never got to finish it. Sits in a can. She goes about her life. She has it. She doesn't think about it. It's always like, I'm going to colorize it. I'm going to finish it. Her husband is like he runs like jewelry stores in the States. Finally finish it. And then I talked to her and watched it. But you got to watch it. It is cool. The only thing that stunk is because I get it. She wanted to make it a real runtime. So she had like, for the concert scenes, which are really epic, they actually filmed them like at the time. They would tell the people in the crowd, like, not Def Leppard, but a big band's coming. People would be like, woo! And then a local band would show up. Yeah. But so there's like these random shots in it. But funny thing, Jaws, the guy that worked on Jaws, the shark, I wouldn't remember the guy's name, but he worked on the Grizzly and Grizzly 2, and it didn't work. So a lot of the movie are the same shots of a real grizzly bear standing up, and then another one where a man's in a suit. But this guy supposedly had like a suit built for a man to run in, and it was like a big suit, but it didn't work. So like Grizzly, man, you gotta watch that. I think you'd enjoy it.
I have to find it. Yeah, I've heard, like I said, I heard it was available now, so I'll search it out and find it.
It was one of those movies that it was kind of like Freddy vs. Jason for me in the 90s. Like as soon as Freddy took Jason and Jason Goes to Hell, there was like those rumblings for like 5-6 years. And then online, there'd be like leaked scripts that were probably just fan made scripts. But then when that finally came out, when this, it was pretty neat. And I love stories like that.
I had a surprise recently. We did a film that we shot 5 years ago that never came out, that is now being released in theaters like next week. Yeah.
What movie?
When we shot it, it was called, and we never finished it either, by the way, when we shot it 5 years ago, called The Georgetown Project, with this guy that you probably heard of named Russell Crowe.
That's that movie?
And it's coming out now as The Exorcism. Yeah.
So is this movie was filmed before his other exorcism movie he just did last year?
Yes. It was done before the Pope's Exorcist that he's done. And now they're even talking about doing the sequel to that film now, by the way. And yes, the film that we was shot 5 years ago and was never actually even finished then. And they sent a camera crew to Australia, apparently did some pickup shots with Russell, and the film is being released, I think it's next week actually, in theaters.
Oh my God.
As The Exorcism.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you never know.
At least it's getting out there. Yeah, at least it's getting out there. That's good.
You never know.
That's gonna stink. Like if you put your heart and soul into it, even like the whole thing with Catwoman with Warner Brothers recently, or no, I'm sorry, Batgirl with Batgirl. Like that's gonna suck. You know, that's your opportunity to be the star in a superhero movie, and you're young, you're not known yet, and
Yeah.
that footage is not around.
Yeah, they do. They've done that a lot, actually. And recently there was several films that they've made the entire, what was the Wile E. Coyote film too. They made
I
the
know, but I
entire,
think that's finally coming out. I think somebody picked
oh,
it up because I saw the
oh,
trailer.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
good.
I was
They,
pissed because I was like, "Whoa, that's a great idea." The cast
exactly.
looks good. Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, you never know. And a lot of times too, man, it's such, oh man, especially with the studio system. Oh my God. It's such a gameplay BS.
oh,
I
I
mean,
know. Just to write it off. I'm an accountant, so yeah. Like with that whole story, it was like, they want to just take the law. It's like, really? Come
okay,
on.
to be honest, one of my favorite movies I've ever been involved with, I've got a handful that I think are my best. And the top three, it's in the top three, is a film called Ride with the Devil that we shot. It came out in 1999 for like a split second. Uh,
Really?
Directed by Ang Lee. A cast, if you
Okay.
look at Internet Movie Database, you'll see the cast is like unbelievable.
Oh,
It's a
wow.
it's an epic Civil War film, beautifully shot. In fact, Fred Elms shot it, who's my favorite DP who I've worked with. Fred and I did another little film together called Blue Velvet. It's beautifully shot, beautiful film. And when we were making the film, like I said, in 1998, it came out finally in 99. It was for Universal Movies. While we were in production, all the suits, the heads of Universal, were fired and replaced. And this
Oh,
happens a lot, okay, in our business. So
I
what the
know.
regime that comes in, they don't want the films that the old regime did to make any money. So they'll do what they call burying them, which is what happened with Ride with the Devil, which means they literally release that film with zero advertising or pushing of any type. And so the film flopped. And they go, see, it was a flop. See, they
I
went over.
know.
And that is horrible. And that is a absolutely gorgeous movie with a great message that people need to see today because it's actually more
Yeah.
pertinent and more relevant now today with what's going on in our crazy world than even when we made the film. But check that one out. Ride with the Devil. Great
Yeah, I
film.
gotta find it. I
Yeah.
hate that idea, but isn't it funny that it parallels in everything? Think about like sports teams. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, there's a new GM. All right, I gotta get rid of this guy, because it's not my guy. Because if
Yep.
he does good and the guys that I sign or trade, then they're gonna be like, oh, we wish blank was still here, like the prior
Yeah.
GM or the prior coach. But
Yep.
I interviewed a guy and I like looked it up because he was on a sitcom with Nancy Travis. He was like the love interest. First season they were getting together. Great
Yeah.
ratings. I forgot what night it was. It wasn't good. Like the night wasn't a good spot, but they were like crushing.
Yeah.
So same thing. Everybody at CBS gets fired. They come in and a guy sits down with him and he goes, "You know what? I think Nancy should start seeing other people because I think the end of the last season they finally got together. Yeah, I think she should. Her character should start dating around." And he's like, "But what about me?" And then he was gone in like 6 or 7 episodes. Show didn't even make it through the halfway of that
Yep.
season. But it's
Yep.
crazy how you could purposely tank something because it'll make you not look. I don't even know it makes you look bad, but it's
Well, I
crazy.
mean, again, too. I mean, speaking of Nancy Travis, by the way, I loved her and did her makeup for Mr. Mercedes and loved her. She's wonderful.
She's the best.
But another one just recently that got caught up in this same kind of, what I would really refer to as a pissing match between the showrunner and the studio exec that was a great show. And we never even got to finish the first season, really, although they released it, but we didn't, which was Swamp Thing.
Oh, I know. What was that?
Okay,
That
Swamp
was
Thing was good. Yeah, it was a good show. Looked great.
Yeah,
Great.
looked
We
amazing.
had scripts. Okay, originally we had scripts and we're doing 13 episodes in the first season. They pitched that show to all of us as that show's going to be 5, 6 seasons, man. And it should have been. All right.
Oh yeah.
But again, I guess a pissing match between people the upper echelon, and we never even got to finish the first season. We were on episode 10 out of the 13, and they came to us one night while we were still shooting and said, we're going to finish this episode and shut it down. That's going to be it. We didn't even get to finish the season.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And they spent so much money on that and did so. That's, oh God, go back and watch that show because it's good. The swamp was built on stage.
Really?
That all that you see there, that's all on stage, man.
Wow.
It was amazing.
That's crazy.
It was so big that we had 8 working boats on stage in a swamp, and it looked real. It was amazing.
Where was it? It was in Hollywood? Where was it filmed?
Oh, we shot that here in Wilmington.
Oh, okay. Is that like a big, you would say like a lot of your work has been there, or did you ever have to live out in California?
I've worked out in California. I've actually worked all over the world.
Yeah.
I was based out of here because of Dino in the early days, and this became home.
That's cool.
But I mean, the studio, Dino, the Dino years was only 4 years. He built the studio, but the studio still exists. In fact, there's several studios here now, not just that one.
That's awesome.
But this has been a film hub really since the 80s here.
Oh, it's awesome.
And a lot of great films have come out of here. Yeah.
Oh, man. So Jeff, you have a ton of credits. The only one I want to ask you about, because I love just like I mentioned to you, I love just learning about the journey and like learning about like the why and how and to like that first credit. But one, because I have the poster of it, I loved it as a kid, but I still love it. Rambo 3. Oh man,
yeah, that was a toughie. Wow, that was a tough film. That was a very hard.
Post a photo? You posted a photo recently, right?
Yeah,
of you. Yeah,
because we just had an anniversary for that film. I think it hit 36 years old or something like that just the other day of when it was released. I think it's 36 years ago, just the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's another one where it was a crazy, crazy film. Kind of a history-making film in some ways that people aren't even aware of.
Really?
Yeah, because we started shooting that film in 1987. We finished it in 1988, and it came out in 1988. Actually, I was shooting that film 3 days up until its release in theaters.
What?
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing that most people don't realize. It was the most expensive movie in movie history at that point to make.
Rambo 3, really? Wow.
But prior to Rambo 3 in 1988, no film had cost over $40 million to ever produce and make. Rambo 3 came in at a whopping $63 million to make.
Jesus Christ.
I went completely around the world on that one movie as far as shooting locations. And our last things that we were doing, we were shooting in Hollywood there at a place called Intravision, which doesn't even exist anymore. Intravision was a special effects house that was a very complex system of shooting basically matte glass and mirror shots. It's how they did the train trestle set shots on Stand By Me with the kids running across the train trestle.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? It was all on stage, nothing's there. It's all smoke and mirrors, glass, and it's a wonderful process, but it takes forever. We were shooting not 3 scenes for Rambo 3. We were shooting 3 shots, okay? Not even a scene, shots. It took us over a month to shoot those 3 shots, okay? I was literally there shooting those shots up until 3 days prior to that film being in the theaters.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was a crazy one all the way around.
What was the reason for the cost? Was it like I'm sure Sly was getting something, but it was more like just blowing up everything? Like,
well, I mean, you see a lot of that money on screen. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
What we did on that, but there was a lot of at that time period when we shot that film. Like I said, that was 87, 88. Like I said, we started shooting in 87, finished in 88. It was a long shoot. Like I said, we went around the world in that one. And at that time, Stallone was the biggest worldwide star there was. Okay. So part of there was creative differences. Richard Crenna, Richard Crenna's passed away. Richard Crenna was such a nice man. Richard Crenna said he was going to take out an ad for us, but he didn't do it. To give you an idea, I was one of 5 people, and this is not a joke or an exaggeration. I was one of 5 people that made it through that entire production from beginning to end.
That's one of 5. That's fine out.
There were only 5 of us. The first, we went through 3 director photographies. We even went through a director. First director was fired. The first director for Rambo 3 was actually Russell McKay.
Really?
Who was right off of Highlander and hot because right off of Highlander. And we started shooting with Russell, and I liked Russell. Russell was a great guy. We were actually making a really interesting, good film with Russell. And we started shooting Russell in the Dead Sea of Israel in August of 1987. And we were making an interesting film. And then when Stallone arrived, we'd been shooting for weeks. And then when Stallone arrived in country for the first time and saw the dailies, he hated what he saw and came on set and fired Russell, and we started over.
That was always like him, and I'm not asking you to say anything, because you worked with Arnold just before this on Raw Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you a funny story about that if you want. And this is one that. Okay, well, I mean, here goes. There was also a fan magazine that came out on Rambo 3 when the film was released. And there's a photograph that backs this story up in that fan magazine. And I was always like, yes. Stallone has mellowed over the years. I've not worked with him since, but my son just did a film with him and had a great time with him.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
My son is an armorer and just did a film with him, like I said, and
really? That's cool.
Yeah. And my son brought up the fact that I did Rambo with him, and so Stallone was like, "Well, it's the hardest movie I ever did. Oh my god!" So it was a hard film, but it was mainly hard because of him. But anyway,
it'd be funny if he said, "Wait, did I fire your dad?" No, he has the badge, 1 of 5.
So you probably already know this, but Arnold's fun. Arnold is I did Raw Deal. Okay. And Arnold's a jokester. He's fun. He was, So anyway, cut to me doing now Rambo 3. So we were shooting it, like I said, we started shooting that film in the Dead Sea in August of Israel, one of the hottest places I've ever been. It never got below 130 even at night. I'm not joking. It was hot, miserable. And so I go to set one day and I'm wearing my crew shirt, black t-shirt from Raw Deal. It was a black t-shirt, and all it said was Raw Deal with a gun on the thing. That's all it did. So I'm literally doing Stallone's scars, and he sees that shirt, and they used to hate each other back then. Huge rivalry, they hate each other. So I'm literally doing his scars, making him up, doing his scars, and he sees that shirt, and with his finger, he goes into my chest. Bow, bow, bow. Don't ever wear that shirt in front of me again. Pokey, boom. I didn't like that at all. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, what my little self did at that point was I went home. I didn't care how tired I was or what was going on. From that day forward, for a week straight, I went home to my hotel room, washed that damn shirt out in my sink, blew it dry with a hairdryer, and wore it for a week straight on purpose.
I love it.
Then the film, after it came out, like I said, the fan magazine came out, and there's a clear picture you can see. You see Stallone and Richard Crenna sitting in the director chair, and then off to the side, you see a little picture of me, and clear as day, you see that shirt Raw Deal. I'm like, yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, their rivalry is something. The fact that I didn't watch, they did that thing on Netflix, or they did something where they spoke. It was like a kind of, but I love when Arnold. Yeah, they're buddies now. Yeah,
they've worked together. They made the Expendables and stuff. They're friends now because I guess they realized how stupid it was.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't even know. It was seemed like it was one way because even Arnold kind of laughs about it because he pranked him and he convinced him to do throw mama from the train. Somehow there was like that whole thing that he was telling his agent to pretend that he wanted the movie, and then Stallone caught wind of it, and Stallone's like, "I'll do it for," and he got paid a lot of money for it, but he did this silly movie because Arnold kind of pranked. I'm sure he would have probably took it anyway, but Arnold tricked him into wanting to do it even more.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty silly. It was pretty silly. But
Yeah.
I give Stallone credit though. Stallone's very smart. He's really smart. A lot smarter than people realize and give him credit for. And he's made some good movies, man. I mean, Rocky.
Oh yeah.
Great film. But I give Stallone credit that like I said, Schwarzenegger was fun. Practical Joker. In fact, we pulled some good practical jokes together. But Arnold is muscle bound. Arnold couldn't move, really.
Oh no, yeah.
Arnold couldn't do his own stunt work and did not do his own stunt work and stuff. And I give credit to Stallone because Stallone was cut and in top condition and could move, was agile. And Stallone truly, he had stunt doubles, but for the most part, Stallone did most of his own stunt work, and most of the stuff you're seeing in that film really, truly is Stallone doing it. So I give him credit there because that's something that a lot of the guys back in the day didn't do and couldn't do.
Yeah. Oh my god, man. So I always love asking this question. I know you kind of mentioned it before, so I'll go back to that. You were talking about like your 3 films. Like, what would you say? Like, remember when they was that in like the 90s? They wanted to put everything on like a laser disc, and they said they would. No, not a laser. They were like going to beam a signal out to like the aliens to the atmosphere, and they put
it was on a disc thing. You're right.
It was right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like Wizard of Oz. They put on like Beethoven and like all these different things.
Yeah.
What would be your 3 things if you had if everybody can remember, Jeff Goodwin 4?
My top 3 films that I'm most proud of are probably in this order too: Blue Velvet, The Last of the Mohicans.
Oh yeah.
And Ang Lee's Ride with the Devil.
Nice. We didn't get to that part of your career, but I always like try to spend like right around an hour 20, which thank you so much. I think it's fascinating to hear about the beginnings, and obviously from your beginnings and what you learned and the connections you made. You kept working on bigger and bigger and bigger things. Do you keep mementos? Did you keep like gifts or yeah?
Yes.
Is it bad? Is it a lot of stuff?
Yes. Yes. I kept pretty much everything. Yes. And I was touching on, if I had to add a 4th film to what we were just saying, my 4th film would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
The original that I did.
Oh yeah, that's that. I was like, I think I was 4 or 5 when it came out. I remember seeing that in the movie theater. My parents took me to the movie, like in a theater to watch it. That movie was just so dark, so different from the other ones. Because the other ones, they're like, all right, we did really good, but we need to cater to more of a broad audience. Because even going back to it, it's so dark, it's so gritty. Love it.
But it's still my favorite out of the bunch.
100%.
Yeah, I still.
Why, you don't like the one that when they time travel? That one was so bad because even like to save money, or maybe they were just being petty. They're like, yeah, Jim, we don't need to use Jim Henson because I interviewed that guy Tim Lawrence, and he worked on. He was like, wait, why wouldn't you have Henson do? So that's why in that movie Splinter looks like Chuck E. Cheese like moving thing.
Well, but here's part of the truth there, though, that I don't think a lot of people are 100% aware of. Jim died right after we made the first film.
Oh, yeah, he did, yeah.
That's when Jim Henson died, was after we completed the first film. Jim never even got to see the film, I don't think, even come out, to be honest with you. I think he died before he... Jim was probably one of the only true geniuses I ever worked with. He was... Oh my God, he's a genius. his stuff that he did. And those turtle suits, his creature shop made the turtle suits. I did not make the turtle suits. But what I did
okay.
was I worked with them to Steve Barron, the director. I loved all these guys. And they were trying to make, which I think we did. We were trying to bring that comic book to life, and we were trying to make it's a like you said, it's a darker. It's not a, it's not a kid film really. In some respect,
Yeah, it's almost like a drama. In the one part after the in the antique store when they go to like the country house. It's like, whoa, like for a kid's movie to ever slow down that much, it would never. That's why it's not a kid's. It's not a kid's movie at all.
No, so we were trying to make a serious, good film, and I think we did. So that's kind of my point in the beginning, in pre-production and stuff. Jim wasn't there the whole time. Jim was there for a little bit in pre-production, and then he came back during shooting for a little bit, basically for publicity shots and stuff. But there was a big discussion in pre-production about the turtles themselves as far as the paint jobs and stuff, and it was decided then by Steve Barron that he didn't want them to be too cartoony as far as with the paint jobs and exaggerated, polka dots and stuff all over, which they later in the other films did, and also he wanted them to show, even on the turtles, injuries and bruising and stuff like that. And I remember when that was first brought up, Henson had a fit, like, oh no, because then we'll have to repaint the suits each time, and it's going to be time consuming and wear and tear. And I'm like, no. I said, I got an idea. I said, I can do all the bruising and all that stuff, and you don't need to repaint each time, because I said, I'll just do the bruising using watercolors. And they were like, oh, and they let me do that, and that's what I did. So did it with watercolors. Right off, put them right back, didn't affect, and had to repaint each time, did that. Steve Barron thought that was great. And something else is Steve Barron in the pre-production thought it was funny that I had just done Rambo right prior to doing Turtles. Rambo came out. So Steve thought it was funny that I did Rambo. So if you go back and look at the first film now, it's the only film that's like that, because I only did the first one, and also Jim Henson only did the first one. We didn't do anything like that. So the Turtles never looked the same after that film.
No, totally. I think they did that more of, they probably like, oh man, that guy made it look too raw and made it look too real.
So, like I said, Steve Barron, the director, thought it was funny I did Rambo. So he actually he wanted me to put a scar on Raphael. And so I actually used a real leftover Rambo 3 scar, and it's right on his cheek. And if you look, you'll see he's got this scar, Raphael does, on his cheek. And the NECA toys that are out now are so detailed, the NECA toys even have the little scar.
Whoa. You got to get one of those.
Yeah, they're cool.
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So what are some of the things that you have? You don't have to go crazy, but is there, did you have things from like even early film, even like membrane? Oh, you did have something from membrane, right?
Well, I gave a lot of stuff to the local museum here.
Oh, that's cool.
Decades ago, they've got the membrane. They got a lot of stuff. But one of the things I have, which I will never let go of, it will be passed down to my son when I'm dead and gone. And if he wants to sell it off, he can sell it off. But I kept everything. But the main thing I have that is the one thing that people want is I still do have the ear that I made for Blue Velvet.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
That's like your prized possession. That's your Mickey Mantle.
That's kind of what started it all in a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really cool.
It was such an iconic thing. And David and I treated the ear like a character as well. I mean, it was so important and started, the whole film off really. And so it became a joke. We called it Mr. Ear, and we treated it and really treated it like a character in the film, which it really kind of was.
That's awesome. What movie did you meet your wife, or was it not during a movie?
We met on the horrible crocodile films.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Wow.
She was
so something good came out of it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, she was the first AD, and that's how we met. We actually literally met, shook hands while, because that was the first stop when the crew arrived in country, basically. Because like I said, we were Italian films that we were shooting in the Dominican Republic. So the first stop is everybody would always want to come to the shop where I was creating this giant crocodile to see that, and that we literally shook hands and met over the sculpt that I was working on. So that's how it all started.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. How'd your son get into it? Obviously, it's not too hard to think about venture into, showbiz, but how did he come to be an armorer?
We didn't discourage it and we didn't encourage it because it's not what you and I talked about a little bit at the beginning. It's not,
I know. It's not glamorous.
It's not glamorous at all. It's a gypsy life. It's not what people think. So we didn't encourage it and we didn't discourage it. Originally, he didn't think he was going to go into the business, and now he is as an armorer, and he makes props and stuff too.
Cool.
He enjoys what he does, and I'm all for it. But I just feel like the business itself is changing now, not what it was. So
yeah,
I'm really starting to wonder if anybody is going to have, to be quite honest, if anybody's going to have the career and the way that I don't think that's going to.
Yeah, you won't have like 40-year veterans, I don't think. Yeah, I agree.
I think that's going to be a thing that passed, man. I don't think it's going to be a sustainable industry for everybody to be able to just have that as your career. You're going to have that along with several other things going to, because it's just not, it's not what it was.
Yeah. No, I agree. Because it's like there's no like the medium budgets or it's pretty much like, it seems like some of the movies like Gorilla were really cheap. We're going to get this done in 14 days, or it's going to be $300 million. Or
yeah, you're absolutely right. It makes no sense. There's no in between anymore. It's like ultra micro budget or huge budget stuff. That's, like I said before, to me, the bigger the money, the bigger the mess.
Yeah.
And I still hold true to that. And I still think that the lower budget films are more pleasant to do. Most of the time, I think they turn out to be better projects because it's a passion thing, because people are there because they want to be there. They're going to bring something to it.
Jed, this has been awesome, man. Thanks so much for spending 90 minutes with me. And
talking to you, man.
Yeah, man.
Yep.
It's the best. Yep. I think just that era of filmmaking. I know you said your favorites were like the 60s, like to the late 70s, which there's definitely great movies in there, but it's so weird when you think about, I think it was just because of the boom. There was more movies being made in the 80s because there's so many movies. It's like, like ones that I love, or I think at the same time it was the box office boom, like the video store
video did change the game. In fact, video, I've even got a couple in that group as far as when the films first came out in the theater, they didn't do very well. But then they found their audience later on videotape, and became hits. And now some of them even like, cult, Empire Records, for example. Empire Records is a good example.
Know, which is crazy to think about that. That wasn't a big hit right away.
Yeah, it didn't do anything when it came out in the theater, but on video, that film found its market. And now, man, that film's got a huge following. In fact, I think I've had kind of more crazy reactions from actors that I've worked with when they found out that I did that film than probably any film I've done. I won't say her name. Really well-known big actors.
Yeah, that's cool.
Literally screamed in my face in delight when she found out I did that, because she's like, you don't understand. That was my sister in my favorite film. We used to dress up like them. She like went just bananas. I'm like, wow. Okay. Well, yeah.
That is awesome. No, I think is that that's so cool. You never know. Like you said, like when somebody asked you when you did the interview about like iconic, like you don't know when you leave a movie, because I'm telling you, I talked to some like Canon film directors, and when they finished a movie, they were like, okay, this movie's done. And then I talked to the guy, Stan Firstenberg. It was like maybe like a few weeks after, I think it was the Break-In anniversary or one of his movies. And he's like, I never thought people would see this like in a few years or remember it. It
Yeah.
just but that's what the VHS, DVD, and like that's
Yeah.
where it did help.
Yeah. VHS really resurged and gave a lot of films a second life that they would not have had otherwise, you know? So yeah, I think it kind of changed the whole market. Market's still changing, unfortunately, too, now because
Yeah,
physical media is starting to go away, which
it's dead.
I'm not a fan of it leaving. I
I
like that
know.
copy of the film, and that's starting, as you see. I mean, it's starting to, they're not in the stores anymore. It's starting to go away because now they want streaming, and I don't. It is changing the whole. You know, they're just bemoaning right now the fact that Labor Day weekend or Memorial Day weekend. Sorry, we just had.
Oh yeah,
Big box office usually, and box office this year was low and down, and it's because people are watching them on TV now, streaming.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
killing off the theaters, which I think is a big mistake and a shame. But that's where we're heading. That's where we're heading.
Yeah, Joe, I learned so much today. One of my favorite things that I learned was the bootleg like Super 8s that you could buy, and the fact that it was $300. I have a VHS tape because I picked these up like during the beginning of COVID. I was like, man, really cool to line the walls with tapes. Like, because when I was a kid, like my parents would throw away my shit. Like once I wasn't using stuff or we started buying DVDs, they like gave them away. But like one was like a $40 VHS, and to me that was crazy. But the fact that you said a whole movie, then I get why it was maybe harder to make or produce or get out there, but it's pretty wild.
I think the very first VHS tape I ever bought, because if you're too young to really remember, but when they first came out, you really couldn't buy a movie on VHS for a while, and they were very expensive when you finally could. And I think the very first one I ever bought on VHS was Blade Runner, and that was like $120, I think, to buy it on
That's
tape.
insane.
On tape when it first came out, and I bought it because that's still one of my favorites. I love Blade Runner.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
talked to a few people from that. No, definitely.
beautiful,
That's definitely like what they did, like visually, and yeah.
David Snyder is a friend of mine, and we've worked together.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh, you
David,
guys worked on Super Mario Brothers.
yeah, and David was the art director for Blade Runner, and
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I
Beautiful
talked to
work.
Stephen Poster, who worked on that a little bit too.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, it's just crazy to think about. Even nowadays, if somebody was like, "Oh, Doug, you want to go buy a movie $120," and I make more than I did when I was like 16, making like minimum wage, I would still be like, I don't know, man. Like that's a lot of money.
yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I still
That's
collect it.
oh yeah, I have all the Planet of the Apes that I got.
Oh,
I love
still,
those movies. All of them are so cool.
yep, I agree. I love them.
Even the
Still
later
have.
ones, like the one in LA. I was trying to interview that the actor who plays the lawyer, and he kind of like big time me. He's like a big soap star now. Though he only had like 5 movies, and it was like bizarre, not bizarre movies, but he did that. He was the lawyer in that one, and then he played like the doctor. You ever see really not well known movie, but great movie, The Ambulance with Eric
Yeah.
Roberts?
Oh yeah.
So when I interviewed Eric Roberts, you had to think it's very hard when I talk to people to like shock them about a movie I watch. I'm sure maybe
Yeah.
a lot of people don't mention like Betsy's Wedding, but me and
Yeah.
my wife were scrolling through and it's 500 plus, and I go, let's watch this one. The cast looked good. It was set in New York. Stan Lee makes an appearance, and I go, oh yeah, so I watched your film, The Ambulance. And he lit up. He was like, man, that shot when I'm on the gurney. He's like, that's real. There were guys there to catch me, but he's like, we stole all those shots in the city. And a lot of those crossing the street shots, we just showed up, camera rolling. I'm like, wow, that's cool.
You used to be able to get away with that. One of my favorite things I used to do as a joke and a fun thing, and you, like I said, in the makeup trailer, you get to know everybody, the actors, and you're always talking and stuff. And a lot of times, people's first movies, especially with the actors, will always be sometimes subject of the topic will come up, and most actors sometimes say, "Oh, nobody knows my first film was blah 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 blah," and most of the time I do. And there's been several cases where I'm really working with somebody and they'll say that, and I go, I know what your first movie is, and I know. So Tommy Lee Jones was one of these people. Okay, I worked with Tommy a couple of times, loved him, and the first time we worked together, we were talking about that, and they're like, nobody knows what I know what your first movie is. You don't know my first movie. I said, I know what your first movie is. He goes, if you know what my first movie is, I'll give you $20 right now. I said, your first movie was Love Story. You played Ryan O'Neal's college roommate in Love Story. And he handed me $20.
Wow, that's good because that's before IMDb. That's like watching movies and saying, I've never seen that face before.
Yeah, yep,
that's amazing. Some people would like those for most of the people like the 80s, 90s is always like some knockoff slasher that's like supposed to be like a Friday the 13th. But that's good that you knew that. That's awesome.
It's fun. I mean, I've always been a trivia nut. And like I said, when I was a kid getting into it, my parents didn't understand what the heck
Days of the Drive-In. They should have understood. Maybe they deep down understood because they exposed it to you, you know?
And as a kid, I could tell you who directed everything, who wrote everything, who was in everything. And my parents used to say, where's that ever going to get you in life? And then once I started working, they were like, what are you working with? Can we come visit Bill?
Last thing I'll say, Jeff, and you know why people knew who directed movies back then? Well, I know directors are always still nowadays, like you'll have like you'll have like the stars and the director, like the produce writer before a movie. But it's so crazy. Like we were watching, I think Bambi, my daughter wanted to watch. She's 5. And I was like, man, people would turn this off. It's like the beginning of those movies back then. First 3 minutes was everybody that worked on the movie, which I think is great to like, hey, these are the people that worked on what you're going to saw that you're about to see. Not like, okay, screen black, you can go now.
Well, it's not 100% true because it's something
not all the movies back then were like that.
Well, now what I'm getting at is people don't realize that the older films that you're talking about, where they had all the credits up front, a lot of cases, I know this is true in a lot of departments, and makeup is one of those departments, where the name that's actually on the film is actually not the person that actually did the makeup on the film. That person, head of the makeup department for the studio.
Oh, yeah.
And they are the only one that got credit. They were not on the film. He hired somebody, and you're doing it. So in reality,
you're right. I talked to people that mentioned that they did the work but didn't get credit. Yeah, no, I hear you.
In reality, credits, especially the older credits, are not. Or it's actually not the people that actually did the work.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, I'll let you go, man. Thanks so much. Just be out in like a month, and I had a blast. Thank you.
Let me know, and I appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
Totally,
Enjoy.
man.
Thank you.
Bye.